Hey, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, your host. And today, as you know, we are trying desperately as we count down to the midterms to introduce you to as many potential new Democrats coming into the House. And one of those guys who we're really pulling for is a 28-year-old kid. I shouldn't say kid, please excuse me, Ryan, for that. Young man from the University of North Carolina. He would be representing, if he could, District 6 of North Carolina. It's being held right now by Mark Walker. If that name doesn't ring a bell, it probably shouldn't, because he hasn't actually done much in his time in the United States House of Representatives. But perhaps that's why Ryan has been able to surprisingly close the gap there, and what shouldn't even be close is now close. And why? Well, that's because Ryan Watts is an exceptional candidate, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you this right now. Ryan is out there shaking hands. He is knocking on doors. He's doing everything that the old-style politicians used to do, and that's the rank and file, going to meetings, attending luncheons, going on the stump. He's doing everything. I mean, he is all over Carolina 6, which is basically right around the Raleigh-Durham area there, what is most notably known as, of course, the Research Triangle. So Ryan is someone who is a deep thinker, and at only 28 years of age, he is a rising star in the Democratic Party. So without any further ado, let's begin our conversation with Ryan Watts. And Ryan, we're getting down to crunch time. How are things looking there in District 6, North Carolina, as you attempt to turn it blue?
Well, it's...
Or Duke blue, for those who are that persuasion. Not that I want to offend either side.
Well, I'm the Tar Heel, so...
I know that. So.
But I have a lot of respect for the Blue Devils.
There you go.
The Blue Wave is coming close to shore here. We're 41 days away, and we're doing everything that we can to get out the vote here. The numbers are there. If the vote gets out the way we hope, then we'll be in good position to win this November.
Good. I mean, let me ask you, what are the key issues going on in your race?
There's an overarching theme of accountability, and we've spent a lot of time over the course of the campaign talking about what representative democracy is supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. People in Washington should not be beholden to their party. They should be beholden to what's best for the people that they are supposed to represent. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's not what my opponent has become over the course of time. And, I'm a Democrat, and I always say this, my dad and my stepmom are Republicans. My mom is an unaffiliated voter. My stepdad is a Democrat. So I've really been reaching across the aisle, my entire
in your own
life.
House. Yeah.
And I don't dislike my opponent or the president or anyone else who is a Republican because they are a Republican.
Right.
I'm very disappointed with the lack of accountability in Washington, and especially considering that the first job of Congress is to provide a check and a balance on the executive branch. And that's something we've really lost sight of. And so I think there's a lot of people out there who are disgusted with the racist rhetoric, the bigotry, the xenophobia, and are tired of representatives that toe the party line, are actually afraid of speaking out against that divisive, hateful type of behavior, because they're more concerned about they're worried about a tweet storm coming their way from the president or what have you, and that is not what good leadership, that is not what bold leadership is supposed to look like in America. And so I think that's really an overarching theme. And of course, it won't surprise you that healthcare is at the top of people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
That we're talking about removing protections from pre-existing conditions in this current Congress. A lot of folks are concerned about Social Security and Medicare. Because folks like my opponent have said, we really are. We want to cut those benefits in at least significant amounts, if not greater than significant amounts. So those are two big ones, but I think education and environment are also two big ones that we like to talk about. And finally, I mean, there's far too many working poor people in this country, and we really need to look at a living wage that people don't need to be working 80+ hours a week and still struggle to make ends meet.
No, you're absolutely right. And I will say this, Ryan. One of the things, when I came to Washington back in the early 90s, I covered President Clinton. And even during the time when Clinton was being impeached, he and Newt Gingrich spoke on a daily basis about the importance of keeping the government moving. That is not the case at this point in time.
Right.
I'd like your thoughts on a couple of quick things, and we'll go back to North Carolina. But first of all, regular order doesn't exist at this point in time. And one of the reasons that regular order, and for those of you, I know that most of us are political nerds. If you happen not to be a political nerd, regular order is 60 votes to pass a bill, okay? And the reason they set it at 60 is so that one side, if they were in the majority, wouldn't have 50+1 and basically majority ruled. The 60 vote situation was put in place so that you had to build a consensus. Right. And you had to work with the other side. Well, that was cast aside in some regard by the former Democratic the former Democratic leader, Senate Leader Harry Reid, and it's been crushed to death by Mitch McConnell. If you don't have to worry about, and look at, to your point on Congress, look at what an absolute and total freak show is going on with Paul Ryan, who in my estimation will go down as probably one of the worst speakers of the House in history. I mean, he can't even control his own caucus. So there, to your point about healthcare and other things, Ryan, and here's where I'll let you start moving back into this conversation. And that is, I can take you this very day, bless you, I can take you this very day over to Washington, over to the Hill, and you will find that there is bipartisan agreement of between 50 and 60+ votes in the Senate on a healthcare issue, on how to start the process of, but it's never come to the floor because, the White House and the Majority Leader McConnell won't let it. There's stuff going on in the House that could be done. Again, bipartisan. But Paul Ryan won't let it happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ryan Watts. Ryan, you're right in so much as it needs to be fixed. But, right now, it's got to be fixed by the Democrats taking over the House of Representatives so that Nancy Pelosi or whomever is the speaker will allow free thought to come to the floor.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're at this point where we've got a lot of people who say the right things when they're cornered by some reporter. And then when the time comes to actually take those steps forward, all of a sudden they kind of double back on what they had to say before. And so we've got people who say, look at all the great things going on in Washington, but there's just not much to speak of outside of the tax reform bill that got passed that gave 80% of benefits to the top 1%. And people in my district are extremely frustrated because the average taxpayer in my district outside of the 1% is getting back $6 a week, which when you account for the tariffs that are causing everyday household goods to go up, when healthcare premiums continue to rise, that $6 back a week doesn't even come close to paying for the increasing cost of living in this country. And so we've got all of these self-righteous people in Washington who are either lying or making misleading statements to their constituents, who are attempting to pull the wool over the eyes of their flock, who truly are not telling the whole story. And we have got to start electing people who are willing to shoot straight, who are willing to be honest, and who are willing to be accountable. Because right now, we've got people like my opponent, Mark Walker, who puts out this weekly email saying, look at all the great things going on. Well, the thing is, some of those things are good. Some of those actions are good. You know, there are things that we can do to save money and be fiscally more responsible. But when the rest of your legislative agenda is inherently going to hurt people, whether it be through healthcare or the environment and the pollution of our groundwater, particularly with the coal ash ponds that have flooded due to the hurricane that just came through, whether it be passing tax cuts for the wealthy, whether it be taking funding away from education, there is a bigger story that these members of Congress, especially those in the majority right now, that just aren't telling the truth. They are not being forthright. And when they also aren't showing up to have debates, when they haven't held town halls in over a year, they are running away from their constituents because they know that they can hide. They think at least that they can hide. And our mission is to say this isn't what representative democracy is supposed to look like.
To your point about healthcare, I would suggest to those who are following Ryan, who may not be voting for Ryan at the moment, that you check into what executive orders have been done coming out of HHS and CMS. Now, those are departments that oversee a large number of things that are representative of what goes on in the ACA, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, the Affordable Care Act. They have undercut and underpinned the law so badly that even though it's still alive, they're trying to kill it from within. That is what you need to be looking at, because when your opponent speaks about helping people, he's lying. They're not.
That's right.
It is an absolute bold-faced, and I'll say it right here, ladies and gentlemen, a bold-faced lie, okay? They are lying to you. You know when they're lying? When they open their mouth, okay? It doesn't exist. They are killing the ACA from within and blaming the Democrats for it, which is insane. But, go ahead.
I want to add something to that. One of the most befuddling things that I've heard among countless befuddling comments from my opponent is he championed this statement saying, look at this, because of our work, healthcare premiums in North Carolina in the ACA exchange are going to go down 3%. And he championed this. And he even posted an article from the Greensboro News and Record on his Facebook page when he was championing this. And it's though they didn't read the article, because in the second paragraph of that article is a quote from, I believe it was a spokesperson from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, a big healthcare insurance company here, that said, had it not been for Republicans undermining and taking away subsidies for the ACA, the healthcare premiums would have actually dropped 15%. Right. So they're out there championing this one-time, very small drop in premiums and totally ignoring or unaware of the fact that these insurance companies actually said, hey, actually, we could have done even better had it not been for your actions. And I think that is something we've got to call out.
Well, and you're right. And the other part, too, which your opponent will hopefully be questioned about, is that with the situation with regard to premiums, one of the reasons that premiums are going lower is because they're taking away the risk pool, which then undercuts the opportunity. If you have a pre-existing condition, you will pay 3 times what you're paying now for insurance. And at the same time, If you happen to be poor and sick, God help you, because their attack on Medicaid is relentless.
Right.
They won't go after the corporates. They'll go after Medicare. They want to get the poor people now. So if you happen to be poor and you happen to be a woman, you are doubly screwed.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that for a very, very long time, basically since the inception of this country, white men, mostly older white men, have run the country. And, obviously, and they've been white too, by the way. So
Right.
I'm also a white male.
Right.
And so I think it's important that we acknowledge and learn from our past, and that we move in an inclusive and accepting direction, that, I don't have to be a woman, or I don't have to be a person of color, or whatever it may be, to want to stand up for women and people of color and immigrants and DACA recipients and gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer. It doesn't matter, because this country, every person in this country has value. And the way Washington operates right now, it's as though the folks in Washington are only standing up and speaking up for the white men. And that's unacceptable to me. I believe the millennial generation, of which I am one, is one of the most accepting and inclusive generations ever in American history. And I believe the only way that we move forward together as a country is if we start electing new, inclusive, and accepting leaders, of which I hope to be one.
We'll be back with more with Ryan Watts right after this. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84, but at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/mynamewilliams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy. but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. I continue my conversation with Ryan Watts. I think that, to your point, what is worrying these people is the fact that there are people around them that don't look like them, and they don't know how to handle that.
Right.
And, they know, and the Republican Party is listing in a direction that is literally cutting their base to the point where their base is going to be so small that in the very near future, they're going to be the minority of the minority.
Exactly.
So I mean, there are guys like Alan Steinberg, who served under George W. Bush as the head of the EPA in District 2, which is New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. He is supporting people like yourself, people like Andrew Gillum in Florida. He is wanting to see the House turn blue because, as a Republican, he thinks his party's been hijacked. And so there are Republicans out, stumping for candidates like Ryan because they believe that the man who runs this country is a lunatic. And I am not going to say he is or isn't. That's not for me to say. But I can tell you that while Congress is paralyzed, there's a lot of stuff that you need to follow going on from out of the White House through executive orders, which is undermining every aspect of your lives today. So, Ryan, down in Carolina, you've got, like you said, a number of different issues. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to tell me what you want to do to help the people in your district, District 6 down there in North Carolina.
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, I think the list of issues is so long, we'd be here all day.
I got the time. Okay.
But I think first and foremost is we really do need some new leadership in Washington that understands the modern economy. Now, one of the starkest differences between me and my opponent is that I've actually worked in business with companies of all sizes, from startups and nonprofits to Fortune 500, 100, Fortune 50 companies across the country. And I, on a daily basis, work in helping people through changing times. And we don't have that skill set in Washington. So from that lens, I mean, I think one of the most important things is that there's a lot of great opportunities here in North Carolina. We're a fast-growing state. there's more that we can do to not just bring jobs here, but to bring the right type of jobs here. We don't just need a standard minimum wage jobs, because we know that minimum wage jobs, as of right now, the way the minimum wage is, just isn't enough. We need to be bringing jobs here that pay a living wage and that also have benefits for folks. Until we move towards a different type of healthcare model in this country, we are in a position where people are struggling with healthcare. So I think that is all these issues interconnect. We really need to be looking at living wage jobs, healthcare, and we also need to be reevaluating education, because education right now in this country, Republicans are cutting it left and right. Teachers are not being paid like the professionals that they are. I believe we need nationwide early childhood education plans. I believe that we need to be restoring funding for programs like Teach for America. I believe that we need to lift the burden of student loan debt that students across this state and across the country are struggling with. They're paying almost 8 or 9% in student interest when banks are getting 2% or less on the money that they borrow. And so I think we need to students should not be paying more to borrow money for their education than banks do when they borrow money. And finally, given the changing economy, I'd like for us to move towards universal free community college, or at least provide student loan debt forgiveness for folks who are going to community college, because of the tremendous programs. In fact, every county in this district has a great community college that is really teaching some of the skills and trades that we are running a shortage of in America, whether it be welding or whether it be plumbing or whether it be HVAC. There's a whole lot of things where people can't find qualified people to do those jobs, and so we really need to be investing there. But I want to wrap up your question with, I think, the biggest thing we need to do. When you look around at the world, you see a lot of investment going on from countries like China, many countries in Europe, South America. They're all investing in the future. And the thing that we have failed to do in this country is we have failed to invest in critical infrastructure. The biggest, obviously, roads and bridges are in need of repair. Some bridges and roads are actually collapsing and killing Americans, which is a major problem. But from an infrastructure standpoint, to me, the biggest issue is we need to make sure that every single American has access to high-speed internet. There is a tremendous difference between a student who has access to high-speed internet at home and a student that does not. That's the single biggest contributor to the achievement gap in schools. And so we need to be really looking at how can we work with telecom companies like Verizon and Google and AT&T and all these sorts of folks to partner on infrastructure projects where we ensure that we get every corner of America wired with high-speed internet. Because I got to tell you, in my experience in business, there is not one business out there in any industry that is moving their operations to a new place or bringing business to a new place where that infrastructure is not in place. And so I think that is something very critical, and that is part of that forward-thinking, problem-solving mentality that I believe I bring to the table.
Brian, one of the things that concerns me is that we don't have the urgent. Everybody's excited about voting, but they're not necessarily excited about volunteering. Candidates like Ryan, folks, and I'm telling you straight up, need not only to get cash from you all and get your vote, but they need you to help you. So you got to go out and help Ryan. I'm going to give him a chance to plug his website and tell us how. But if you're in North Carolina, I don't care where you are in the country, if you can help Ryan out and you want to see Ryan get elected and candidates like Ryan get elected, then please, voting is one thing, and it's very important. Do not get me wrong on that. But just as important is volunteering in any way you can to help top candidates in swing districts like Ryan is in. The numbers are 84. There's 84 seats in play at this point in time. The number 23 is the most important to remember. That's the number of seats we have to flip. We need to flip those seats. We get the people like Ryan in there. Ryan, how can people who want to help volunteer with you and for you get in touch with your campaign and help your campaign?
Well, as always, feel free to reach out to our campaign info at wattsforcongress.com. That's a great way to get plugged in. Also, our website, you can sign up to volunteer, wattsforcongress.com, WATTSFOR Congress.com. But finally, I mean, whether you're in North Carolina or not, I mean, obviously donations help, but we've got people all across the country tweeting, Facebooking, Instagramming, sharing us on social media. And also, we've got a lot of folks out there who are writing postcards for us across the country. So if that is something that you're interested in doing, we would certainly appreciate your help. We've got a great team, but the team always can be and needs to be bigger.
So at this point, Ryan, will there be any debates between you and your opponent between now and Election Day?
Well, it's interesting. The answer as of this point is no. In fact, not only I have been just this week at 3 different candidate forums, all of which Mark was invited to. He did not come to any of those. And he has actually pulled out 2 additional ones. One, which is one of the biggest in the district traditionally, the League of Women Voters candidate forum, he has pulled out of. And he's also pulled out of the candidate forum in Sanford, North Carolina, that the local newspaper is hosting. So he continues to pull out of not even just one-on-one debates, but also candidate forums. And I find it interesting because he and his campaign specifically said in an article that got published not too long ago, would you agree to a debate? And in that article, his spokesperson said, absolutely, we never shy away. We absolutely never shy away from showing constituents what we're about. Well, I'm going to put the ball in your court, Mark, if you're listening, because at this point, you have not held your word on this at this point in time. So it's not too late. We still have time, but it's not looking like he's wanting to have this conversation with the voters.
I'll tell you what, given the way the Congress and the Senate on the Republican side have handled the Kavanaugh situation, I think the last place he probably wants to be is at the League of Women Voters to talk about what's going on in Washington from his standpoint. I'll ask you real quick your thoughts on the Kavanaugh situation.
It's a real shame that Congress is more concerned about their nominee than they are about the truth. I believe that any woman who comes forward with these allegations, who, especially in this example, they have not only bared the brunt and the burden of this for a long time. They've also, this is not the first time that they have shared their story. It just hasn't quite made the headline. The Republican Party has a list, literally a list of people that they can pull from. And at this point, I believe that the right thing to do would be for them to withdraw Kavanaugh's nomination to the court. I've been against Brett Kavanaugh from the very beginning, not because he is someone that Republicans nominated or that Donald Trump nominated. I've been against him because of his political background and my doubts that he could be someone who would be fair and impartial as a member of the Supreme Court. We have seen ongoing cover-up efforts to keep all of the documents from his experience out of the public eye. I think that even Mitch McConnell knew that this individual had some baggage. I'm not sure if he knew quite how much baggage that he had. But I believe that we should not allow someone on the highest court with these allegations, without hearings, without due diligence. I believe that is beneath us as a country to not go about this in the proper way. If these allegations weren't true, if there had been the effort for transparency in this process, then I might not have as much to say about it. But given what has gone on, what has transpired, and the unwillingness to come forward with the truth and to rush the process just for the sake of political expedience, I believe that is wrong. And I believe that he should either step aside from the nomination or that he should be removed by the Republican Party from the nomination.
Well said. I believe in due process, but if the Republicans are not going to allow for due process to handle, which would mean an FBI investigation, they remind me very much, Ryan, of a movie that I would suggest your constituents and supporters take a look at. It's called Judge Roy Bean. It was an old movie that Paul Newman was in. There was a line in there. Roy Bean was known as the hanging judge. And there is a opening shot where people are screaming about, one way or the other. Should he be hung? Shouldn't he be hung? Judge Roy Bean, who was in this case, I said, Paul Newman, shoots his gun in the sky and says, we're going to hear him out, then we're going to hang him. That's pretty much what we're looking at right here. Come this week in Washington, is the Republicans are going to say, we want to hear from Dr. Ford, but right afterwards, we're going to still pass him. So I don't know what the hell is going on, but it is crazy. And Brian, one last time, give us your social media, your website, and how we can follow you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, help this guy out. He's going to be outstanding. He has a chance to be the youngest person going into the United States House of Representatives, and by God, let's put him there.
Well, I really appreciate all of your support, and I do believe that it is the millennial generation that can really make some positive changes. We have grown up, like I mentioned, accepting and inclusive of everyone, but we've also grown up with a willingness to learn, and a willingness to learn from our elders. And so we don't pretend to know everything. We do certainly want to do the right thing, and I believe that is something that Washington has totally lost sight of. And so would certainly appreciate your support on our website, wattsforcongress.com, facebook.com/wattsforcongress, and then on Twitter and Instagram, Watts4Congress, for those two social media handles. Would appreciate your follows and your support as always. We've got a shot. This is one of those races. It would be an upset, and it's an uphill battle. But with everyone's support, we can do it, and I believe we must.
Ryan, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure, and hopefully next time we talk to you, you'll be on your way up to D.C.
Thanks again for having me. It's always been a fun time, and I hope that the next conversation we have is in January when we get to work in Washington.
You got it, my friend. Be well. Follow Ryan Watts everywhere, folks. We'll have all of his information in the show box below, okay? And Ryan, again, thanks for joining us, and we will be back right after this. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84. But at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/my name, Williams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy, but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. Welcome back, everybody. Now, if you're not one of the over 50,000 people who have downloaded and subscribed to our podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we sure as heck make it easy to do. All you have to do is go to the iTunes store. We are very happy to be part of the Apple Podcast family. Also, Google Play, as well as TuneIn, iHeartRadio. We can also be gotten at Blog Talk Radio, as well as, of course, Spotify and YouTube. So there's 9 different places out there, and trust me, many, many more, to get the podcast. All you have to do is search the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. Hit the favorite button, and each week you will get a brand new edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast sent to your tablet or to your phone, or hopefully to both. Okay, so please do that for us. We greatly would appreciate it. Okay, special thanks to our guest today, Mr. Ryan Watts. He is the challenger in District 6 in North Carolina. For those unaware where that's at, that's the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle area. And so we wish Ryan all the best. He's an outstanding kid. Remember, there are 2 numbers you need to know. There are 84. That's right, 84 swing districts at this point in time. For the Democrats to take back the House, we need to get 23. Let's make Ryan one of those 23, okay? All right, on our next edition of the show, we're looking to talk to the folks from Swing Left Swing Left is a great organization attempting to do everything they can to get people out to vote and to get people to volunteer and make the blue wave happen. Okay, so they will join us next week. Looking forward to it. Until that time, for Jim Williams, myself, and the rest of our entire team here at the Politically Incorrect Podcast, we wish you nothing but the best and a very enjoyable week.